the NBA playoffs have now concluded round 2, and the Knicks are out, which is whatever. I do think that the Knicks and the Celtics would have been a better series, and maybe the Knicks would have given the Celtics a run for their money, and it would have been, as we all know, I hate Boston teams more than I hate New York teams, and so I would have loved to have watched Boston melt down and listened to Bill Simmons on the Ringer Podcast Network, brought to you. Like, I would have loved to have watched the Knicks, like, take the Celtics to, like, 7 games and had all those people, like, lose their shit. But I'm going to go to the other side. I want to go to the West Coast, exactly where Ford is, where he's going with it. If you watched Game 7 of Timberwolves Nuggets last night, let me know in the comments. But I watched that game, and the start was rough. Okay, it was rough, and there are plenty of things that you can take away from that series. The Wolves go up 2-0. The Nuggets roar back to take a 3-2 lead. Everybody thinks that Anthony Edwards and company are dead. Everybody goes back to shitting on the Rudy Gobert trade, which I still contend is a bad trade. Like, the amount of assets they gave up for him is nuts, unless they win the title, in which case I guess it was worth it. But the Wolves win Game 6. They go back to Game 7, and it was a 20-point lead that the Nuggets had. And I think it was a 14-point lead at halftime. Previously, the biggest Game 7 deficit ever overcome at halftime was 11 points. The Wolves were down 14 at half, and I get that the game was late, and so maybe not everybody watched it, but you got to see why so many people make the comparison of Anthony Edwards to being like a young Michael Jordan. And remember, he said like a week or two ago, I don't want to be compared to Michael Jordan. I want to be my own Anthony Edwards, which is a wonderful quote. But, like, he's a very likable guy, it appears. He waved bye to the Nuggets fans as time was ticking down, which Jokic didn't like, which is totally fine. I guess we can also point out that Jokic has never beaten a team in the playoffs that has had more than 50 wins in the regular season. We just won't talk about that. We won't talk about the fact that last year en route to an NBA title, he beat a bunch of shitty teams. But we won't talk about that. It's totally fine. No big deal. Low-seeded teams. It's totally fine. Who cares? Anthony Edwards looked really good, figured out ways to get himself involved in that game when his shots weren't dropping. He stepped up in a big way. Karl-Anthony Towns, who I've been very critical of in the past, who I still think, like, when Joel Embiid and Karl-Anthony Towns meet, Embiid eats his lunch. Cat looked really good. And in this series, looked really good. And as a collective, and this is probably part of having Rudy Gobert, who Embiid typically also clowns, Gobert has now taken so much of the defensive impact for the Wolves that Cat didn't want to have. It's now allowed Cat to be a more versatile defender, and now what you see is he is an end-to-end player. He is a very gifted offensive player, but now he's also making an impact on the defensive side. That team is fun. That team plays lockdown defense. That team is one that everyone could and probably should get behind. And as the playoffs continue, I can't find a more fun team to root for right now, even though I don't exactly like Rudy Gobert. There are reasons that I don't particularly love Rudy Gobert. I've talked about them on Snow the Goalie in the past. I think that Western Conference Finals is going to be one for the ages. I think it's going to be a great series. I truly hope it goes 7 games. The East, I don't care. The Celtics are going to absolutely decimate the Indiana Pacers. It won't matter. But in the West, Mavericks, you get Luka Doncic and you get Kyrie Irving, who have played sensationally together, have meshed. All of the flat earther Kyrie distractions have seemingly gone away. He and Doncic play so well together and so well off of each other. People question whether 2 ball-dominant guards could make it work. They have. That's going to be its own exciting series. Like, that in its own, that Mavericks team is a lot of fun to watch. And now you line up that very dynamic offensive team against this absolutely suffocating defense that Minnesota plays. That should be an exceptional series to watch. And I have really good news for everybody, if you haven't looked already. And maybe you did, maybe you didn't. We are now in that spot with the conference finals where it's every night is one series or the other. And it starts on Tuesday with Pacers-Celtics. Then Wednesday flips to Mavs-Timberwolves. And it goes back and forth. We will have a game on TV every single day through however long. Now, again, I don't think that the Boston series is going to go particularly long. Maybe it'll go 6. but I don't think Indiana can really keep up. I think that you're going to see games where Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown are going to take themselves out. They're often no-shows in the fourth quarter and in clutch time. So Indy could maybe win a game or two at home, make things a little bit more interesting. But that Mavericks and Timberwolves series is going to be one for the ages. And the best part is those games are going to start at either 8 or 8:30, which means if you don't like staying up for a 10:30 p.m. Eastern tip-off, you won't have to, which is now also good for the game because there are a lot of people on the East Coast who, again, don't stay up late, haven't gotten to watch this meteoric rise of Anthony Edwards, haven't gotten to see this total change in Karl-Anthony Towns, haven't gotten to see how they play this like twin tower system where it's him and Gobert and it somehow works. I'm all behind the Wolves. I want to see how how it plays out, but I'm all behind them. I will say that if the Mavs win, I'll be happy for them as well because I think it's going to be a really good series. They're a fun team to watch. I don't think it matters, though. Whoever wins the West is going to win the NBA title. The Boston Celtics will inevitably puke all over themselves because that's what they do. And then the best part is Boston is going to have to go into another offseason where they question, what do we do with Jaylen Brown? They extended him to a max deal. That was questionable at best when they did it. But if they flame out, whether it's in the Eastern Conference Finals or the NBA Finals, if they get clowned by the Western Conference team in like a 4 or 5 game series in the NBA Finals, it's great news for Sixers fans and for fans of the NBA who don't like to watch Boston win because they are going to go into full all-out meltdown mode. So from my vantage point, it's a no-lose situation. If Indy wins the title, totally fine. If Dallas or Minnesota do, totally fine. Yes, there remains a 25% chance or better that the Celtics could end up hoisting the Larry O'Brien trophy at the end of the year. However, I don't believe in Boston. They're a very good regular season team. I don't believe in them in the playoffs. We will see.